everyone. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Bad Beats podcast. We are starting it live here, and I have the most recent RC winner of RC Montreal, Linden Koot here, to talk about his win, the journey, and everything in between. Hey, Linden, thank you for joining us. Do you want to give us a little bit of an intro for yourself?
Hi, yeah, so my name is Linden. I guess since it's first episode, first time here, I guess. But yeah, I'm just a Magic player from Vancouver, and it's crazy. Yeah, I did just win the RC, so it was like a week ago. So
Yeah, still setting in. Hey,
yeah,
we're gonna we're gonna start just by asking like a couple of base questions or whatever. What would you say is your like journey of starting Magic? Like, what do you have any like early core memories that kind of just like sit with you?
well, yeah, of course. Like I started Magic when I was like 13 years old, and I remember playing a lot of Limited. Like Limited was my first thing. A lot of sealed decks and like playing just like janky, whatever vanilla 5 mana 5/5s or whatever. And I remember for my first draft thinking an 8 mana 9/9 was really good from Ixalan, whatever that card was called. I forget it. It's the green
Brontodon or
6.
whatever,
Yeah,
ancient Brontodon.
yeah. No, I remember thinking that card was messed up, and I was like, "Holy!" That was my first ever draft, so I remember stuff like that, and it was awesome. But
Yeah, I I
it's been
remember.
a long time then.
I remember in the early days thinking that you could just like ultimate planeswalkers off rip, and like that was just the kitchen table that we played at like absolute high school. I think it was like first grade of high school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all those crazy rules, right? I remember like there was this we made up a rule with Death Touch where we thought initially that Death Touch when you hit a player with a Death Touch creature they just die, like Death Touch for players. So the 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch creature was like messed up. Um, and I remember like my friend bought an Ulamog or whatever for his casual deck, and we're like, why does this Ulamog matter? I'm just gonna play my 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch on turn one.
It's gonna kill
Doesn't
anything it
matter.
touches.
Yeah,
Indestructible
yeah,
beats the death touch. We figured it out.
exactly.
We figured it out.
Yeah,
But
we broke Magic with our 1 mana 1/1s.
so
Really,
to
really
switch
big.
switch gears to be a little bit more competitive to talk about absolutely the new system of the RCs. Did you play any of the system before RCs were introduced, and do you have any thoughts towards that, or just thoughts about our generic RC system and how you're enjoying what's currently happening?
So yeah, I definitely started getting into competitive Magic pre-COVID GP era in my like 15, 16-ish. It's hard to remember off the top of my head, but I remember attending GP Vancouver and GP Portland, and I went to GP Calgary as well before COVID, but I didn't participate in the main event. But I did participate in the main events of both GP Vancouver and Portland. I do remember not doing terribly well, like crazy well, but I definitely loved playing competitive Magic, and that was the beginning of it. So
Do you
I'm not
remember your
sure.
first deck?
I remember GP Vancouver was my first ever GP main event, and it was Ultimate Masters sealed. So it was a sealed GP.
Oh, that was the one where it was like, mono graveyard matters, if I remember the limited format correctly.
Yep, I opened a Snapcaster Mage in my pool, so that was kind of cool. I had Snapcaster Mage, and Fire Ice in my pool. I remember being like some blue weirdo. I like Snapcast. I did like the cool thing that you might have done in like Modern or Legacy a long time ago, where you like snap ice their land on upkeep, or like you ice on turn two and then turn four you ice again.
So
I
you're
remember
just like
doing
a Rhinos player through and through, because I remember like one of my first introductions to you, you were just like the Rhinos guy, and that's just all you loved doing. So I guess Fire and Ice was just installed in you at an early point in your career.
Yep, that was the first time I ever cast Fire and Ice. Was that GP?
You're
And
just addicted ever
it got,
since.
yeah, it got me set. Fire Ice forever. Couldn't play Snapcaster Mage though.
But how do you more so feel about even like the more modern day RCQ stuff? Because we participated in the old system. Is the new system you think any better?
So yeah, I didn't get tons of like I wouldn't say I was super active in the old system, mainly just because I was so young and I was just getting into it, and then COVID obviously happened, and then reaching out of COVID was when I really started like getting into Magic hardcore and like doing it every week and going to weekend RCQs. But I do like the current system. It has its ups and downs, obviously, but I do participate in a lot of local RCQs. It's just something I enjoy doing, and I live in a really good area where like within an hour drive, there's usually something every 2 weeks that I like to go to. So
That's good to hear.
it's
I
like a
good to
bit.
hear that Vancouver Magic's like popping. I don't really know a whole lot about the scene, but it sounds like it's very similar to Edmonton. Just tons of things to always be doing.
Yep, yep. There's lots of big stores in the area, so they always have something going on. So
Yeah.
I do enjoy the frequency, if that makes sense, of RCQs. I guess it depends on where you live, but I enjoy that you can just go play, and then the RC system is also pretty good. Like I don't know much else, so that's the thing is I don't have many criticisms just because it's like, what's the alternative? But
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I remember early on when like the first strike podcast invited me on or whatever, and they were asking me about like prior systems, and I'm like, I have no clue. I just like started in the new system as well. I do enjoy our current RC system. For those who don't know about the Canadian one specifically, right now we have a thing where if we win an RCQ, we get a buy in a big face to face event, which is kind of just like our system like NRG. So it's kind of like there's a lot of incentive to just always be playing RCQs and always be out playing Magic. Minus game days because we haven't fixed the promos on those yet. But
the promos are so hit or miss on like
oh
the game days and store champs. I went to a store champs literally this week, and I won the Godric, and I'm just like, whatever. Like it's so funny. But then it's like the next time it's like, oh, it's Urza Saga and it's $500, and it's like, oh, like it's just I don't know. I wish there was some consistency on those kind of
no,
things. But that has not much to do with competitive, the Canadian RC system, because that's all
yeah,
wizards. But it's just like
that's just
crazy.
Wizards. But it's really funny because it's they always just miss on the red ones. Like Koth they missed on too, being like the big game day winner. It's
Oh
they just
yeah, I
can't
was
hit red
talking with
cards.
friends for sure. I was talking with friends, and it was like the store champ promos for this one were like, sorry, it's Gleeful Demolition, whatever. What's that 2-drop
Oh,
summon?
Charming
What's
Scoundrel.
there you go. Charming Sound was terrible, and then Godric, and I'm just like they missed so much. Like imagine if Godric was instead like Screaming Nemesis, like a borderless, like I'm saying, a Texas Screaming Nemesis would have been insane and
I
like
know,
perfect,
or like a
but
Corey
they
Steelcutter. Like
dropped the ball
actually,
so hard. Yeah, like they dropped the ball so hard on it. I was like, oh my goodness.
like
Anyway,
they predicted
yeah.
the standard deck. Sorry, they reprinted cards in the standard deck that was popular like a year ago, and then they just like these cards just don't see play anymore. Like Lethal like did at
Lethal's the
least for a
best
little
one.
bit.
Like the participation one is like at least in Pioneer or whatever, like maybe one like it's a unique card and it's like it's playable, so like that one's okay. But the Charming Scoundrel and the Godric made very little sense. Like
No,
if it was like imagine it was like Manifold Mouse and Screaming Nemesis.
we figured it out.
Like insanely better, like
Yeah,
infinitely better. Like
we could
yeah.
have been playing for so
Oh,
much more, but no.
yeah.
So to move towards the actual win, so you ended up playing Omni in this event. Did you always like want to play Omni going into this, or did like Tarkir coming out? Because I know there was like a month in between the introduction of Tarkir and the RC. Did Tarkir have like a big impact on your decision to play Omni?
Yeah, for sure. So I started off pre Tarkir coming out playing standard. I came second in a big face to face tour stop standard event playing Golgari mid range. I was really high on Golgari mid range coming into Tarkir. I thought that the deck you can build the deck super flexibly to like beat what you want. And I was playing like 4 Liliana the Veil main deck because at the time it was actually good versus both the red decks, the domain decks, because the edict was good and then playing grindy and whatever. So I really liked that deck going into it. But Tarkir kind of did throw me a curveball because I did see the Omni decks doing really well pre Tarkir, but then I started to catch on to the meringue tech, and that really opened up a lot of doors for innovation, which we can get into later with how I built my list and how I wanted to
Mm,
approach different things. But yeah, meringue and Dragonstorm really changed how I viewed the Omni deck, and there were huge upgrades. And immediately from there, I bought into Omni basically once Tarkir came out, and I saw it was bringing up results, and I would continue to try it. And I got sold on the deck about probably a couple weeks after Tarkir came out. I came second at another local RCQ, but I was playing Omniscience this time, and that's kind of where I locked in. Was like, yeah, I'm like 90% to play Omniscience in Montreal. I just got to figure it out.
mhm. And do you feel like it was like a difficult challenge to go from Golgari mid range, this like very much so like again a mid range deck that had a lot more ways of attacking the format versus this more like combo mid range slam things finish? Like, do you see was there a lot of like build up beforehand, or did you just have to completely learn like an entire new thing going into it?
Um, I would say like how how like standard works. It's like I wouldn't say I had to like start from scratch because like I kind of knew what the other decks were trying to do, obviously. But Tarkir was like a big shake up to the format, so like learning what Prowess did, obviously, like the Prowess deck was huge, and that didn't exist really before Tarkir, so like everything kind of changed. but it's hard to say. Like I didn't it wasn't that hard. Like the Omniscience deck, I would say the lines aren't that hard. I don't think it's like playing Amulet Titan in Modern where you need to like all of a sudden like once you get the lines down, but like Omniscience is kind of simple. Like you're just cantripping, put Omniscience in the graveyard, reanimate it, and then from there you just do your thing. Not saying it's not a hard deck to play or you need your practice, but it wasn't like the fundamentals are still transferable in a sense. It's just playing a different style of deck, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I feel like the games of Omni, at least when I've been like watching it, the games are that are like hard are like so insanely hard because you have to try to work around this combo, and you also have to play like these. You still have to like kill with these like your only threats are like the big 6/7s plus like some insects sometimes because they moved away a lot
Yeah,
from those like early drops, and so like the games that get really complicated really quickly. But like the brain deadness of the deck does just happen sometimes. Where you're like, I turned forward it, cool.
yeah, that's kind of what I like too. Is you just had like your brain dead draws, which are great, and that's like the upside of the deck is like you get your oops I wins, and then also the deck can play longer games with interaction. You can posture like a mid range deck. You can posture like a control deck, and that's kind of the similarities actually to the Golgari mid range deck. Is because like even though the decks have like nothing to do with each other and they're not even playing like a single same card, like all that, they're not even close to
No.
the same deck, but Golgari midrange can also posture like an aggro deck. Golgari midrange can posture like you can really be flexible on how you want to posture in certain matchups, how you want to posture post board, and like based on your opening hand, how you want to play out the game. Omniscience can do similar things where it's like if you open certain hands or versus certain decks when you're sideboarding, you can just say, I want to be this. And you can build your game plan in that vision. And I think Golgari midrange gave me a lot of good practice in that. But Omniscience can do a similar thing where you can pick your lanes and you're flexible and in the deck is not just like always one lane. You're always trying to be a combo deck. You're always turbo combo. That's not really the case.
So going into like the preparation for Omni, because you said you got settled as soon as you saw things going really well for it. Did you have any other prep when it came to like these slots and like any specific things? Do you feel like you had a lot of things to like change from lists that you saw, a lot of things that you hated? Did you try a lot of things? What didn't work out that you tried? Like give us a little bit more of like an insight into your preparations for this RC with this specific format and if there was anything different that you tried.
Yeah, for sure. So I started off with Team Vendillion Click. We had a lot of testing sessions together in Vancouver. They're just a team of Vancouver locals that help for RCs, and so being a part of them really helped. But things I identified early on is I wanted to try and figure out win conditions because at the time this was very early into Tarkir coming out. There wasn't the win condition at the time was obviously the invasion. This was the invasion versions of the deck, and I was very determined to cut invasion. I was like the first card I wanted out because it doesn't really that this goes back to like the whole flexibility thing I was talking about. Is invasion is super one dimensional. It's only good when you're comboing, and I really wanted to open up the avenues to be able to pivot with the deck and be able to transition in games, even in game ones, to like what are you doing? And I think the meringues really opened that up as a single card to be like point at a card and be like what opened up the deck to be more flexible. Meringue single-handedly did that, and so taking out the invasions would let you do these changes I was talking about. So then my main thing was trying to figure out how do I win the game when I'm comboing with Omniscience when I don't have invasion. And so my initial looks was definitely playing Oracle of Tragedy because this card let you shuffle cards back in. And so my original win condition was put four meringues in play and hold up a couple confounding riddles and then pass the turn. And then so from there it would evolve into different ways to try and win and figure out what's the most efficient way. And then the hive mind of Omni eventually landed on founding the third path as the win condition with two meringues, which I didn't mind. It was better than the invasion, but I also was pretty determined to try and cut that card from the deck too.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see because like I also didn't like that card because it just always was something that you could just like snipe out and it was just a way that you could just target the deck because it just like only had access to the win. A lot of the lines were purely based off of it. So I do agree that like it was kind of like nice for you to try to like find that and cut that card. So
For which one, the founding or the invasion?
the invasion, I hated the invasion.
Yeah, no, the
It
invasion is
always looked
just like
bad.
way too one-dimensional. Like when you cast an invasion in a game where you're not comboing, you've probably already lost the game, and it's just like you can just do better. Like yeah, it just doesn't. It's kind of like it reminded me of playing Thassa's Oracle and like Nadu kind of thing, like that kind of realm where it's like, why are we playing this card? We never want to draw. just like get out of here.
Yeah,
With
like the Nadu combo was good enough at just like killing your opponent by not having any permanents and untapping. But to move gears, so we've done all of our prep. We've thought about everything going into this event. Now we're in Montreal. Was this your first time in Montreal? Did you enjoy the city, the venue, and everything around the RC?
So this wasn't my first time in Montreal. I've only been to Montreal for Magic tournaments, funny enough. So this was my second time in Montreal. Last time I went to Montreal was the other RC Montreal. I enjoyed it. The venue actually is the same venue as last time. Actually, the venue is fantastic. Just there's like lots of food nearby, and it's like actually really nice. Like basically a convention center, and I enjoyed the venue a lot. And the city's nice. I didn't get tons of time to explore the city, but
Would
that's
you want to
okay.
go back to like have a solo explorer time?
I'm not much of a traveler, so I wouldn't say so. Yes, but if I was, I had no complaints about it. It was nice. The food is probably the best part of that city.
Ooh, yeah, the food was pretty good. I also like the fact that the transit just like took us to the venue. You didn't have to like stay super close or worry about like Ubers or whatnot. You could just like
Yeah, it's perfect.
easy get there. Um,
Yeah, it was perfect.
um, do you have any
Sorry.
rituals for your day of for going into Saturday?
Day of going into Saturday, really the first thing is like food, like breakfast, making sure you eat some food and just waking up, getting to the venue. I like to get to the venue always like 30 minutes minimum before call time. Just like take a minute, say hi to people. It's really the only ritual I have in regards to Saturday. So,
Fair enough. No lucky clothing at all.
oh no, I definitely not lucky clothing.
Oh, I've
I
heard of a
see.
couple of like player Travis Benedict or Eggy Vinny on Twitter has this lucky pineapple shirt that he'll always wear on day two if he's winning. Uh,
Yeah,
there's always rituals that do end up existing. But
yeah.
now we're looking at the day itself. So I know that what was your record after day one?
Going into day two is 8-1.
So we did 8-1 on the first day. Do you have any matchups, any story, anything that you want to talk about on your day one? How your matchups went?
So that's kind of interesting. I'm trying to think it through right now. But I remember that my loss was to Gruel Delirium, which was kind of crazy. Just like that matchup seemed so bad. They're playing four main deck Keen Eyed Curators and a bunch of like disenchants in the main deck, like Canker Bloom to go find with like Breakout. So my lockdowns weren't safe, and that matchup really felt lockdown or bust. My archaeologists, like I had a lot of 2 mana, 3 toughness blockers, but they're playing like cards like Wildfire Wickerfolk that just like punch through my archaeologist super easy. They're playing main deck overprotects. I remember in game one I got blown out because I just felt like I had to relieve some pressure or I was just dying anyway. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna dispersal Wickerfolk, and it got overprotected, and I took 9 from another Wickerfolk in that one, and I just from there it was just like toast. But that was a crazy tough matchup. But from there I played quite a few prowess decks, which my plans I worked out. I had a lot of practice going into it, knowing what I wanted to do against the prowess matchup, and that really worked out for me. Playing 2 mirror matches was really stressful. That matchup can get a little bit coin flippy when it's like, oops, I just discard omniscience and have the turn 4. But I was playing a main deck flanker as like my way to gain infinite life as part of me cutting my founding of the third paths and winning the game, and like just trying to find ways to cut that card. One of them was flanker, and the flanker in the main deck really helped a lot in those mirror matches. Just being able to blow, it's like probably the best card in the mirror match that you can play, just because they go for the reanimate, or you can do it at any time. Really, they put an omniscience in the graveyard, you exile it, it's gone forever. And also, since it's just a body on the battlefield, you can dispersal your own flanker back to your hand and do it again. So it's almost like a quote unquote counter spell for the combo that you can just pick up over and over again, which is huge. So playing that was really big. And then otherwise, it was kind of crazy because I remember getting my loss was in round 2 to Gruel Delirium. I was like, oh, here we go. Like I was ready for the slide down a little bit. I wasn't like anticipating it, but I was like getting myself ready to be like, all right, kind of sucks at the end. Like it sucks, but we just keep going and ended up winning out, which was crazy.
Now, on day one, did you think that you saw any matchups, or like were the matchups that you played the ones that you expected fully, or was there anything that was missing, anything that you played against that you weren't really expecting, or was it just the Groot Delirium that caught you by surprise?
It was mainly just a Gruel Delirium. I actually found myself doing really well versus what was expected. Like all the expected decks of the tournament that I had plans for, and I knew what their lists were when I saw them, and I just like no, that I intended on day one. Especially, I just like kind of didn't, I wouldn't say crush them, but I just did well, and I won those matches, and then I lost to the one match where I was like, oh, I know what I'm kind of trying to do, but I wasn't thinking super hard about this matchup because it's like way down in other, and it's also just generically a tough matchup. So I kind of got crushed by other there, but it
Yeah.
happens.
So you finished the day 8-1, right? You had a record of 8-1 on day one. What's
Yep.
your mindset going into day two? Are you thinking that you're so close to that finish line? Are you really nervous? Like, what are the thoughts going on in the Coots brain?
In the Coot Spring. So going into day two, I was pretty hyped. Obviously, I was pretty up. Going in 8-1 was really good. When I qualified for the first time for my pro tour in Edmonton, I was 7-1 going into day two. So it kind of reminisced of like X1 is kind of one of my favorite places to be going into day two of these RCs because I have a bit of a superstition that like the 8-0 kind of is cursed sometimes. They sometimes just like crash and burn on day two, and it's like, oh, glad I wasn't the 8-0. Like I've seen it so many times where the 8-0 just doesn't make top eight, and it's like, oh, okay. It's like kind of it's weird, but it's just a weird superstition I have. So going X1 was felt good, and going into day two is like pretty. I felt like there's like a chance, you know. I'm just like, oh, it's actually not that crazy to make top eight here.
No, I think the general mood in the Airbnb was just got a 5-0 a league. You know, it's just one league.
Yeah,
It's just five
not even,
matches. Um,
not even.
yeah, and then so we get to we get to day two, right? What our matchups on day two? Do we want to quickly walk through those and how we ended up feeling and how we eventually got there? If we just want to start with our first match and work our way up.
Sure, let's go through it. So my first match was on coverage versus Liam Kane. He's a really good player, very intimidating. But yeah, I got smashed. Let's put it in short. Like it wasn't even 0-2. I remember game one. I went turn three lockdown to clean everything up, and there was two slick shots. There was a slick shot in play and a slick shot in plot, and I had the scroll shift, so I passed because I wanted to try and get everything, and I went for the kill shot with the scroll shifts, basically. Not for literal lethal, but basically, if I took this, I was probably gonna die. And I went for the scroll shift on lockdown. He had the one of main deck Pierce, and it was like, okay, like
Tough.
it makes it. That's that it happens. It's just like that's how you win. And it's like all right. And then yeah, game two, I also just got smashed. So it was a little bit of a gut punch, but it wasn't like terrible. It was like yeah, in a way, I almost felt like it was due. Not just like in a way of like going 8-1 is like crazy. It's a crazy run, right? So you're just
Mhm.
like, yeah, here's the loss. Makes sense. Got first time in the tournament. I got other than the delirium, which was like I kind of by the time day two rolled around, I was like, yeah, that's a matchup I was not ready to win, and so it's like that's a loss I'm gonna take and eat.
Sure. So we kind of lose to Liam Kame, right? So after that, are we still thinking the fact that we have like a chance to like top eight and win this thing, or are we just like resetting ourselves back and just have to like be ready to prepare to play these next four matches, or what are we thinking?
Oh, I'm definitely thinking it's still possible. Like I'm still in the mindset of like I'm still pretty hyped. I kind of just took it on the chin. It was like it happens. It's Liam Kane, crazy good player, got me good. Like sure, it was like is what it is. That's what's my mindset going into the next round for sure.
And so then we play
But
our
I still
next few
think that's
rounds.
good.
So then we play our next few rounds, right?
Yeah.
And we start to get a couple of wins. We start to grind. I believe the matchups weren't anything too crazy, if I remember. It was just like things we expected. And then we get to the winning in because we win our next three, if I remember correctly. Um,
I lost right after I played against Liam, so I played
oh,
against Ray.
oh yeah. I forgot we
Yeah,
played against.
yeah. And Ray was also on his it, and I got smashed again. So I 0-2. I misplayed a little. I don't think I played extremely well in that match. I was a little bit not out of it, but I just wasn't just I just made some plays that weren't exactly ideal, especially in the game two that we played.
Do you
But
think
that
your
was also
do you think your loss in the prior round had anything to do with you kind of getting a little bit shaky?
I think so. I think for a little bit for sure. It definitely was getting to me a little bit that I was like, oh, don't throw, don't throw. And when you start like thinking in your head, once like when you get a little tense, right? When you're just like when you're on the edge, when you're on like that edge where it's like, oh, if I lose this, I might not make it. Like this might be the end kind of thing. That's when you tense up and start making mistakes. Usually when you're more relaxed and stuff, you're more in it. So I definitely had a role for sure.
Did you do anything to try to fix this mindset going into the next round? I don't remember the exact opponent after CFT Sock, but or the matchup. But did you do anything
I
in
think
between that?
not really. I definitely like debriefed. I definitely got some time to like decompress with some friends. It was like, starting O2 on day two is kind of a little unfortunate. And in my head, I actually thought I was dead for top eight at this. Not like dead, like it was technically possible because obviously I did it. But I was like, in my head, I was like, probably cooked. We're aiming for a top 12. Like maybe if I went out top 12 for the PT is possible. Let's just keep going. But I definitely decompressed. And I felt like I definitely washed my system a little bit after that match. I was like, let's keep going. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, after starting on such a high of 8-1 and then going 0-2 can definitely like rattle. I know like whenever I like get like those two losses in a row after a win streak, you're just like, well, I tried my best. It's like another moto challenge. It's like, oh well, GG's.
Oh well. In my head, it wasn't over, but it was like I definitely relaxed a lot more. I definitely got into that state of just like we'll keep playing and hope for the best. But I think that was not the end, but the end of the top eight run, if that makes sense.
So what? So then you rattle off two more wins, and then assume that when you get into your last exact round, you start to realize that you do start to get this winning in, and you start to actually build up a little. The pressure comes right back up. You relaxed all the way back down with those two losses, and then it went right back up. So we play against
Okay.
our winning in against Mono Red Leyline, right? Has that a matchup
Yeah,
that you have much experience with?
I have a little bit of actually, like surprisingly, there's a local player that plays Red Black Ley Line, and so when I just kind of go to locals just for funsies over the last like weeks, kind of prior to the event, I'd play against Red Black or like just the Ley Line deck a couple times. I wouldn't say I have like tons of experience, but it was just like it was funny that it was like, oh, my winning in is Ley Line, but yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Talk me through that matchup. I know it wasn't like the most fun thing to watch on coverage, but I know it was fun for me because I got to see my friend do pretty well.
Yeah. So like in the specifics of the matchup, you think, or just like the matchup from
Matchup in
the
general,
tournament?
like when you were realizing that you actually had a shot to win this one.
Okay. So yeah, this matchup I think is probably in the Leyline deck's favor. I'm not like I feel good. I felt my deck was built really well to beat the mono red decks. Maybe not the Leyline decks. The Leyline decks are a little faster, so it's more scary, obviously, and they're more linear.
Mhm.
But I think they're definitely favored in the matchup. But I did build my deck with like these aggressive red decks in mind, so I did felt like that was a big push. That I felt a little bit better. I wasn't like shaking in my boots about this matchup, but I was not feeling like it was going to be a slam dunk at all. So I don't have tons of experience, so it was definitely tough. I wasn't in my head. I wasn't like, oh, this matchup's crazy unfavored or crazy favorite. I was like, probably not ideal, but like we're just gonna do what I know best in terms of like my practicing for the deck and just like play. Like
And
we're
get
just
lucky.
gonna try. Yeah, like
And
a
get a
little
little
bit. I
lucky.
didn't think it was that bad, but yeah, I definitely got lucky in that match for sure,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
So
what needed to happen.
at what point did you realize that you won this game? Was it just it's over? I finally got the winning in, and then it was a breaker sweat, or at some point were you just like, yeah, I have this. There's no way I can lose.
Well, within the match, I think game three, there was a point where I actually had to tap out of removal because I didn't have enough white sources to hold up my soul partition and play out. I think it was my Beza, but the second I got to untap and I got to hold open soul partition and scroll shift with a lockdown and play for the rest of the game. That's when I knew I was like, oh, I'm safe. Like once I got to untap, because there was a window there where technically, if my opponent went like slick shot, show off, pump swell, I was like dead. So there was a window where I could have died for sure. But once that window closed, it was like 5 minutes left in the round. Like the game would go on for a little longer, but I felt very confident I was going to win that game from that point.
Yeah, I
And
did.
then after the match ended, there was not a breaker sweat. Apparently, I don't know. All my friends were very supportive, including you, and everyone was telling me I got it. So I was like, oh, okay. I was not expecting to make top eight, even while I was playing that match. I didn't know I was technically playing a win in, and I know from watching the coverage back, they were saying it was a win in for top eight, but I technically didn't look beforehand. So in my head, the win was for a top 12 for sure. Like I knew I was making top 12 winning that match, but I was definitely not certain I was making top eight. So I was like, we're just going to see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, I remember being in a random side event. I wasn't exactly there for it. All I heard was Linden might have a shot, and I was like, oh, fun.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
then I
cool.
come back
Yeah.
over it, and then you're currently in your quarterfinals match, and I was like, oh, this is what we meant. I thought he was just like top 12. I didn't think anything past that, but
Yeah, me neither. I was honestly, even though you were far away not watching, I was in the same boat. I was just
yeah,
like, yay, top 12. Top
yeah.
8 and then there's
Okay,
like, oh.
so we go into top eight. Were you familiar with a bunch of the other people that were in the top eight, and were you like at all nervous? Were you worried? Were you just so relieved to finally be back on the pro tour? Or what are the thoughts of scaling up your opponents for this top eight?
A lot of them I did know. Like I just recognized them or I know their names. It was kind of cool to get to. Even a lot of them were my opponents. Like Ray was my opponent, and another top 8 was my earlier opponent, which made my breakers. Part of the reason why my breakers were good enough is like I played against a lot of these players in late day 1 and in within day 2, and so I was just relieved though. I was just like kind of in my mindset was just like happy to be here kind of thing. Like I got what I came for. The PT's locked. We're just gonna keep playing Magic, but these are like insanely good players, so we're just gonna have to do our best, shoot the shot.
Hmm. And so now we know that we end up pairing ourselves into prowess against Noé Offman, and then you're seat eight, so you're always gonna be on the draw. Do you feel like being on the draw against prowess is like the end all be all? Do you think that like if anything, it might be like pretty decent for you?
Being on the draw definitely sucks against prowess. I think when you win the die roll versus prowess, it definitely swings the matchup. I think way more towards you because being on the play is huge in that matchup. But the draw isn't like a death sentence, especially with the way I built my deck. Again, the way I built my deck definitely was what carried I think me this event and playing all the Philology Archaeologists and the Oracle Tragedies. Like they're so good in that matchup that that's what I think pushed me over the edge. But I definitely on being on the draw versus prowess, yeah, you need to get a little bit lucky sometimes,
Well, being
and
lucky
that's
you
kind of what
did
happened.
because you ended up winning that quarterfinals match. But was there anything that really stuck out to you? Was there any point where you kind of just like were really worried, really scared, or were you pretty confident the entire time?
I wasn't super confident. My opponent had a really unfortunate set of mulligans in the first game, which kind of just it was a bit of a throwaway. Like not that my opponent threw away. I think their mulligans were probably correct. I didn't get to see them, but it was just like my opponent got unlucky in game 1. I got smashed game 2. I won game 3. I was like, that's what you need when you're on the draw against prowess. You need to sneak one in somewhere, and that's kind of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt pretty good about that. And I was like, whoa. And that's definitely when it set in, like, whoa, I have a win into Worlds next match. Like that was a little bit surreal. I didn't think about it too hard, but that was the most stressful match. Like other than the winning into top, like I didn't know it was a win in, but that was the most stressful match of the tournament, I would say overall. But the next one that comes close was definitely the next one to come.
Winning in itself. Exactly. So let's move on. So you ended up beating Noe 2-1, I believe. And then
Yep.
you queue into yet another is it prowess opponent. Was there a huge difference between like a lot of these prowess lists that you ended up playing in top eight? And was there a particular prowess list that you were the most scared of?
So yeah, these prowess lists were semi-similar actually. Surprisingly, they're all like 4 Drake Catcher, usually some number of Thunder Trap Trainer. They're all the grindier versions of the prowess deck. The prowess deck that I'm really scared of is the one that's playing Slingshot Show Offs in the 75 somewhere. And so the all 3 of my top 8 opponents did not have any slick shots in the 75, which was huge. I think that's a big reason I ended up taking down the whole event because early I found that earlier in the like especially in day 1, a lot of my proudest opponents did have slick shots somewhere in the 75, but as I crawled upwards, you would see the like almost the cannibalization of is it in the metagame really led to the is it players that succeeded not playing slick shot show off. And that was a bit of my plan going into the event. Like I knew Slickshot was on a bit of a downslope, and that was huge for Omni in general because that's probably the most scary card in the matchup is Slickshot.
Yeah, that card getting a lot of attack very quickly, killing you is the saddest thing if you don't have the dispersal. But your quarterfinals matchup, something quite fortunate for you happens and you're winning into Worlds. Do you want to elaborate on your matchup?
Yeah, it was fortunate for me, but also quite I don't know the word for it, but
It's
just like
sad. It's sad. We have a lot
I
of
wasn't
empathy for
happy.
Mo.
Yeah, I felt a little bit sad about it because my opponent handed me the wrong deck list in the top 4, which was unfortunate, and they got a game loss for it. It wasn't purposeful at all. It was just the last opponent's deck list. They accidentally swapped deck list, and he didn't get to see. He didn't check that it was his own, and I just thought it was that. And then we sat down, we started playing, and then I was handed him on a red deck list, and it was his prowess, and I was like, uh oh. gotta call the judge over because it's like I need to know what you're playing just to keep it fair, right? So it's just like I was like, oh, it's prowess, but I just need to see the prowess lists, and then it was unfortunate.
Mhm. So game one becomes a wash because of that. So we move on to games two and possibly three. Are
Yeah,
we feeling super confident now that the fact that we have a quote unquote a free game one going into our winning in for worlds, or
like I said, when you're on the draw versus prowess, you usually need to quote unquote sneak one in somewhere, like because being on the draw is tough. But as much as that sucked, it did help me feel a little more confident in the sense that I was going to get to be on the play. If we did get to go to a game three, I was going to be on the play, and that is wildly beneficial.
did we end up getting to a game three?
We did.
Yeah, and then we
I
ended up
lost.
crushing him, right? That game three was
Yeah,
not particularly close.
no.
No.
Scroll shifted in Overlord.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, you had like a very aggressive draw, and he had a mulligan to five that he drew a lot of lands on with stock up and what similar.
Yep, you just did a lot of wheel spinning.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, a lot of
that's
wheel spinning, no
unfortunate.
pressure. Unfortunate,
And
but
that's kind of my plan for the cross matchup.
mhm. But we ended up winning. We're in worlds, and so now we're all lights, camera, action. We have the last round opponent, our last opponent, Ray. Do you feel like you had some sort of advantage or any sort of like how are you feeling after playing this opponent before and now having to play them again?
Um, I don't know actually. It's kind of tough. Like it didn't feel like I had an advantage of any sense, or anyone really had an advantage. It did feel nice to get to redeem myself, like in the match that we played, just because I did play not completely correctly. I would say the first time we played, like I definitely made some looser plays, and so getting to come back and be like, let's try this again, but I'm in a better headspace
With the
was
world's
felt like
invite secured, do you feel like you kind of let off the brakes at all, and you were just like, "Oh, this is my last match, playing camera, just playing for like a trophy and a little bit of money," or do you feel like you were just forever focused in and just in the locked in stage?
yeah, I wouldn't say I went off the brakes. Like I was definitely still fully in the game and I fully wanted to win. I still had the same drive that I did in the top four match, but a lot of the stress came off because it was like, oh, I my world's like this is crazy. Like I've gotten so much, let's keep going, but like I would not have been quote unquote disappointed or anything. Like I was like it definitely the weights were off a little bit, but I still was determined to try and do my best and win, obviously. But
Mhm. And so now we're playing the finals match, right? Does being on camera at all affect you for this with everyone, all the spectators? And do you feel like you were just like ready to go? Everyone was like, no, nobody was there. Or did the entire weight of the situation like at all set into you and kind of like pressure you out at all? Or were you just locked in, ready to go?
I was definitely just locked in. Like I wasn't thinking about people watching. Like I was, but it wasn't like I was just like, we're just gonna play like it's F&M, like F&M finals. Here we go.
It probably helped that you had the seat that had like the backwards towards like not seeing anyone, you know. And Ray
Yeah,
was the
just
one that got to see everybody, like all eyes, the camera. Um,
yeah.
maybe the seats quality was actually the win. Who knew? Who knew?
Don't look at the crowd.
Don't look at the crowd.
Don't look
Don't
at
look
the
at the
crowd.
crowd. But no.
Yeah,
So
typical Blake Ball.
game one. If I remember correctly, I think you won game one.
I did.
How did game one feel?
It felt actually really good. I feel like the prowess decks again didn't play slick shot. One main deck spell pierce, and there wasn't like a ton of pressure. I kind of leveraged what I feel like that game was the epitome of like why I picked Omniscience to be the deck of choice is especially when the prowess decks were starting to turn into these versions for the mirror match, is because I got to leverage the fact that Ray's deck was a little more grindy and slower, and so we played this long game where I got to set up my combo and then just protect myself, play my temporary lockdowns, and then eventually just like Ray did have the one of spell piercing game one and spell pierced my game winning abuelos, but I just got to play a long game, go to turn like 10, and then find another one, and then just cast it and win. So it was like one of those things where Ray was constantly under the gun of like, if I draw an abuelos, you're losing. Please kill me, but also here's my control deck. So
No.
that's kind of it all lined. It kind of lined up. It lined up well.
Yeah, if I remember the game from the spectators POV, you had the turn four Abuelos, which got interacted with, and then you went for a new Abuelos on turn 5 because you magically found one, and we only knew one card, we knew one card of the cards in Ray's hand, and then magically the other one becomes spell pierced because the first one didn't get spell pierced. I don't remember. I think it got like torched or something, and
So on turn 4, I actually had an interesting spot. I did not cast the Abuelos on turn 4. I had my 4th land drop, I had the Omniscience in graveyard, and I had the Abuelos in hand, but I chose to play around the Spell Pierce. So I actually passed, and I coiled and catched on Ray's end step, just like waiting. And then after my coil and catch, I actually found the second Abuelos, so I went for a turn 5 Abuelos.
mhm. And then it got interacted with, if I remember correctly. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was like,
they
oh, the
did get
one spell pierced. I remember looking at Otter and just being like, oh, dang, we got by the one of. But
so good. But I ended up going to discard. I actually I don't remember. It's crazy. It's hard to remember all the
mhm.
specifics, but one of the omniscience just got into the flood mod, and then one of the boilers got spell pierced, and then we played a longer game. So
Yeah.
I technically went for two. I went for two abuelos within the first couple turns, and they both kind of got stopped. Like
Oh,
my combo got
I,
interrupted.
I remember it was because yeah, you went for the missed coil, or so you went to a discard hand size omniscience, if I remember
I went to a
correctly.
discard hand size,
That's
and I was
why
really
it looked like it because you didn't have because you couldn't play your land, or else you couldn't discard a hand size. That's why
yes. I
the turns
purposely
got.
didn't play that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I got confused on the turns. But yeah. Okay, we figured it out. We figured it out. It only took us, reminiscing
yeah.
everything. But
It's hard to remember.
yeah, 3 prowess matchups in top 8 is probably pretty hard to remember them all, except for the free win you got.
Yeah.
um, Going into game 2, do you feel? Did you just feel a surge of confidence after winning, and you're just like ready for game 2, and you were gonna win, or are you like job's not done?
Job's not done. Job's not done. It definitely the game 2 and 3 it gets scarier, especially when you're on the draw. So it's kind
Yeah.
of game 2 is going to be probably the toughest game I knew of the match for sure for
Well,
me
let's
in my
talk about
draw.
it then. Did game two obviously didn't go your way because we have a fantastic game 3 that we got to witness. But do you feel like you did anything wrong in game 2 that you could have like done better?
No, I feel like the game really came down to me not hitting my land drops past turn 3. I definitely kept a reasonable hand. I don't regret it. Like it was a 2-lander and I found the third and I just didn't find a fourth. I just basically the game just went lockdown. I went lockdown on 3, lockdown on 4 with no hitting land drop, lockdown on 5 and that hitting land drop, and it got flood mod and pierced over and over again. So it's like is what it is. But I also had the surge of salvation in my hand that game. So if I hit a fourth land drop and I go temporary lockdown and Raid tries to flood mod it, I could actually protect it,
Hmm.
and that probably would have changed the game. So like I didn't. I felt like that game really came down to me not hitting my land drops, which is it happens, but
Hmm.
that's kind of the summary of what happened in game 2.
Now, the epic game 3. I loved the game 3. As the spectator, it was so fun to watch because of the fact that we just kept hard slamming things every single turn we could. And
Yeah.
so that made the little maybe that made the little 8 for whatever green common in Ixalan you kid happy of just slamming the
I
big
was
fat
channeling
idiot.
my channeling my inner for Magic Linden,
Yeah.
slamming meringues and overlords over and over again.
So you were playing, and I kind of want to know, did you at any point in game 3 just be like, oh yeah, I got this, like this was a win, or where was it always nervous? Because for those, there was a lot of this town stalling that was happening. It wasn't really progressing anything, but there was a whole lot of stalling that you kind of had to deal with, and so it wasn't like the freest win possible. It was always up in the air for a bit, but then eventually the corner was turned. But was there any point that you recognized the fact that you won or were going to win?
It was definitely when the negate came off the flashy archaeologist, but then Ray conceded the next turn. But the negate was gonna break up this town loop. I actually couldn't really break through it. It was kind of tough, just because like the yeah. So my plan was basically I was just hard casting creatures because the combo was pretty much out of the deck, and I think that plan works quite well, especially against the slower prowess decks. They don't have a lot of good answers to like Overlord the Mistmores, other than bouncing it, but it has an ETB. So I was sitting there with my ETB creatures getting bounced over and over again, and we both couldn't really progress our boards anymore. Like we were in that stalemate, like you were saying. We're both just kind of like staring at each other, interacting with each other, but I can't raise at 5 life, but I can't get my creatures to connect. But then when I drew the negate, pretty much what would happen is I would just start playing my creatures, and then I would just negate the town or negate the talent, and then all of a sudden broken up, and I can start going to town. So
Hmm. And then you won. Won. Very celebrated. Do you now that you had that win, did did the win set in right away, or did it set in like a couple days later, or at what point did you like fully realize like, oh my god, I just won the RC?
Still hasn't set in. It has, but it has. Like I definitely, it definitely like set in the sense of like I'm aware that I won, but it was crazy. I definitely felt like I was calm.
Nothing's changed. You're still just going to be an F and M boss now.
Yep, I'm still just the F&M boss.
So now that we've had a week to like think about that weekend, is there anything that you would have changed going about that weekend? Was there any things that you wish that you would have changed about your deck, about what you did as it like around Montreal, or anything?
Of course, I think there's definitely a lot of things I would change about my deck list in specific. Like I'm still working on like, oh, what does this look like? What does this look like? I registered some pretty stinky cards like Stroke of Midnight. Not play that card again. It was there to make infinite 1/1s while also being like a reasonable removal spell, which I don't regret playing it. Like I don't think it was terrible, but there's definitely more innovation to be had that I didn't quite have the time or the headspace to like figure out, like just quite pinpoint it. But there's still more potential and there's still more room for innovation in that deck. So I'm still working and still there's still new things I would like to try and that I think might be better. But in terms of like how the weekend went or things that we did, I didn't really have any regrets. There's nothing I really wish
Oh,
against. This like epic weekend with friends.
well, that's gonna bring us a little bit more to our conclusion. So, of course, congratulations for winning. Is there
Thanks.
anything that you wanted to say that now that you have like a little bit of a platform? If you want to say anything, anyone you want to congratulate, anyone you want to thank, or
Well, no, I just want to thank the teams that helped me out, like Team Vending, like that were local, and I also worked really closely with Team Scoreboard. They're an awesome group of people. They helped me a lot with like refining some of my list and like working with testing and figuring all that stuff out. So those two teams were awesome. I want to thank everybody that was cheering me on. Obviously, all my friends that were close. That was a big up to my W. You know, because getting having people in your corner there was huge. So,
of
and I
course.
say more on that of shouting out and stuff in the articles that
Mhm.
were written. So stuff like that it was surreal for sure.
Yeah, this isn't the first interview you've gotten it done, but this is the coolest one. So,
This is the coolest one.
so
Yeah,
what can I say? It's the coolest one.
cool.
Well, that's the Bad Beats podcast, the first episode. Uh, don't congratulations on your trophy. You get the little teardrop.
I
It's
get to
always been
spoil it.
it's been a pleasure, Lyndon. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Check,
Hopefully, I get to come back.
of course, win another RC. Of course, this falls right at the end. That's so funny. Anyways, hope you guys have a wonderful time, and we'll see you for the next episode.